3, 2, 1. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Sean. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this PERA meeting on August 25th, 2020. The year's going by quickly. If we could do a quick roll call just to ensure that we have quorum for the record, please.
Chairman Figueroa.
Present.
Vice Chair Rankin.
Present.
Ms. Civillet is absent. Mr. Cohen.
Present.
Ms. Dorita.
Present.
Ms. D.
Here.
Mr. Fontaine. We had him just a moment ago. We'll see if he joins when we come right back. There. Well, I'll come back. Ms. Swearingen is absent. Ms. Ray.
Here.
Mr. Fontaine.
I'm here.
You have 7 present, 2 absent. You have a quorum, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Sean, if you could put the agenda up on the screen.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Right, so we see the agenda is up on the screen. We have several items, including 2 presentations or 2 speakers this evening that will be joining us. So very grateful for them in terms of their participation and willingness to come and speak to this group. I will say that in terms of our work, we've been diligently chipping away at the open cases that we have. We were able to get a subpoena to retrieve some of the records that we needed for review as a board. The hope is that with this momentum, as we're getting more and more information on the cases or complaints that have been filed with PERA, we absolutely want to ensure that we're eliminating any and all obstacles in terms of our ability to retrieve documentation from the police department so that we can find resolution for those that have put their confidence and their trust in this board. I know it hasn't been ideal to date. We've been delayed in receiving information, but that is through no lack of trying. That is now beginning to come into fruition, which is very important. But for the record, what I like for individuals who have filed complaints through this board and those who are becoming aware of our existence and potentially could utilize our mechanism for filing complaints is that we are working diligently and will do everything that we can that's within our authority to resolve those cases as quickly as possible. Our executive director, Jose Baptista, is committed to that. This entire board is committed to that. We're at a place now. We're in a place now where we, where we have to start producing results, whether they are for or against. But we have to begin to end the process of having challenges in retrieving data or information from the department and executing to the best of our ability the resolution of the complaints or mediation that have been received by PERA. So with that said, I will move into our second item, which is a discussion that's relative to the recent protests in Providence. As we know, there have been national protests going on for a few months right now, all revolving cases of excessive force and police brutality. We know that just recently there was another shooting nationally of Mr. Blake. And just yesterday there was another shooting of Black Lives Matter protesters who are on their march from, I believe, Wisconsin to Washington, D.C. These are all things that we keep an eye on here because, as we all know, Providence, our state, is not immune from some of these deficiencies and actions that we may see in other places. So it's good to stay on top of these things and also within our purview, make sure that we're examining policy to do our best to ensure that those type of situations do not happen here in Rhode Island. But again, like I said, we're not immune from those things. So with that said, Jose, we'll turn it over to you. I know you'd like to introduce our speakers. Look forward to the conversation. Jose, you still with us?
Sorry, Jose. Unfortunately, we're getting I guess when you unmuted yourself, we're getting static again from you. I'm sorry. You might want to just join audio with your cell phone, if you can do that next time. Because if you'd like us to, we could proceed with the guest speakers.
Okay, so Jose is signed off and he will be signing back on. I will, Sean, if you could put the agenda up again for a second, please, so that I may be able to introduce our guest speakers this evening. Thank you. All right, so tonight we have Mr. Benjamin Evans from the National Lawyers Guild, along with Ms. Ying Marcos, also from the National Lawyers Guild, and they're here to present to us again on regarding the protests that have been happening in Providence. Some of it, as it was explained to me, some of the things that they've observed and wish to relate to this panel. So with that said, I'll turn it over to the both of you.
Thank you, Chairman Figueroa. For those of you who, For those of you who might not know me, my name is Benjamin Evans. I'm an attorney who practices right next door to Rhode Island in Fall River, Massachusetts. And I've lived in Providence for a long time. I grew up in Providence, went to the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School on Camp Street, and I'm very happy to be here speaking to you all. I think the Providence External Review Authority's work is really important, and I'm so grateful for everything you all are doing, keeping an eye on the police in Providence. So as the agenda mentioned, Jing Marcos and I are both attorneys. We both actually practice in Massachusetts, and we're both members of the National Lawyers Guild, which is an organization that might not be immediately familiar to Rhode Islanders, but it's been around since 1937. It grew out of the movement at the time during the New Deal, when attorneys and legal workers wanted to support the work of the New Deal. It came out of that movement, and it was the first integrated National Bar Association in the United States, because at the time the American Bar Association was still segregated. So the Lawyers Guild started in 1937. We have a very small but active chapter here in Rhode Island. And the Legal Observer program that we participate in started around 1968 when you started having very large demonstrations, notably in New York City at Columbia University, and obviously in Chicago at the time of the Democratic National Convention in 1968. And the idea for it is to have a system of attorneys and legal workers for providing legal support designed to enable people to express their dissent, to express their First Amendment activities without having to fear the types of reprisals that people saw on the streets of Chicago in 1968. And we have these little hats. I'll try to show this so that we're identifiable to the police and to protesters. It just says National Lawyers Guild Legal Observer. It's our trademark fluorescent green hat. Actually, a few weeks ago on the front page of the Providence Journal had a headline about police and protesters clash in the streets of Providence. And one of our legal observers, actually attorney Chloe Davis, was featured on in that photograph. And she's there wearing the trademark green legal observer hat. So that's what we do. Since the police murdered George Floyd on May 25th, obviously there've been a large number of protests here in Providence. And we've been there for almost all of those. And, I myself, I was at the protest that the Black Lives Matter Rhode Island organized on May 30th that began in Burnham Park and went to the State House on June 5th. Oh, and on that same day, actually, May 30th, there was also a car protest at the ACI that I was also legal observing at. June 5th, obviously there was a very large protest called by Gen Z, We Want to Live, the three young women who organized that. They had over, I think, 100,000 people, according to the Providence Journal, that were there on June 5th in Providence. June 12th, I was in Woonsocket, legal observing at a Black Lives Matter demonstration there. June 14th, there was another rally at the State House in Providence. June 19th, there was a car rally in Providence that I was legal observing at. And specifically, we wanted to talk about what we saw on July 23rd. There was a demonstration in Providence, and July 25th. And I'll also just mention, if I may, that just last night, there was also a Black Lives Matter demonstration. I was legal observing at that too. They began at the Public Safety Complex on Dean Street and marched all through Providence, up and down Atwells Avenue and Broadway into downtown Providence and ended up back at the Public Safety Complex. And I would suggest that what was particularly notable about the Black Lives Matter demonstration in Providence last night was that this was organized by ProvX PVD, I believe, which is, obviously a group of young people, very passionate, and as Chairman Figueroa mentioned, very outraged by the recent police shooting of Mr. Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and the other recent police action. So they gathered last night around 6 o'clock or so at the Public Safety Complex, and there was very, I would say, a muted police presence, very few police officers. There were no police following them on their march, at least that I saw, from the Public Safety Complex up Atwells Avenue, up to Knight Street, back around, down Broadway. I saw almost no police whatsoever. And the march was, it was passionate, but it was peaceful. I don't believe there were any arrests at all. I didn't notice any disturbances or fights or anything. They really were able to moderate, their presence in the streets of Providence. So I didn't really see any problems. And that's notable. The police weren't there and there weren't these types of problems. I think that is a stark contrast to the kind of violence by the Providence police and Rhode Island State Police that we saw, for example, on the night of July 23rd. That was a demonstration that my understanding was it had been called by a group called Back the Blue. And I think Back the Blue is a pro-police organization. I got there probably around 6:50 p.m. or so. And I saw about 9 Back the Blue protesters. And what was interesting to me was they were kind of gathered in the parking lot of the public safety complex, kind of the northern edge of that parking lot. And they were obviously very friendly with the police. They were talking with the police. It was a very kind of cordial relationship they seemed to have with the police. And there was kind of further on down the street towards Washington Street, you could see a small group of counter protesters, Black Lives Matter protesters, but a very small group. And obviously it's the public safety complex, so police cars were moving around unimpeded, etc. Around maybe 7:10 p.m., there was a police officer there directing traffic. And it wasn't until around 7:35 or so that the Black Lives Matter protesters kind of moved up from Washington Street and were having a counter protest. And at that point, it became very clear that the police were not neutral arbitrators or neutral referees, but that they were very, I would say, partisan. The Back the Blue protesters were able to kind of move about freely. They could walk wherever they wanted. They had one fellow had a white pickup truck parked across the street in that short street next to the parking garage, and he would lean on the horn and blast the horn to try to drown out the Black Lives Matter protesters. And he was not, reprimanded at all by the police. And that same fellow was kind of wandering around through the whole area on both sides of the street. But what we saw happen was, as soon as the Black Lives Matter protesters tried to move into the street and move towards the east side of Dean Street, all of a sudden you saw a huge police response. Police in full riot gear with their batons out and moving very aggressively. And that's when this young woman was arrested there. And I don't know if I can share. Would it be okay if I share the screen to show some pictures? I'm going to try to do it here.
So, Mr. Evans, if you're going to share pictures, they need to be made part of the public record, and I would prefer that they need to be sent to me immediately, because they need to be made part of the public record if something is being shown, so that it can be preserved for future people who want to view the what's happening with this public meeting. If you were to email it to me, I'd prefer that I share them for you. I can send you a quick email so you can respond to that.
Okay.
And you could continue your presentation, and then maybe you could show that as soon as you get my email,
Okay.
unless you'd like to wait.
That's fine. At any rate, I'll just continue. It was very clear that the people that were supporting Back the Blue, that were supporting the police, were able to walk wherever they wanted. They were able to have a mobile sound system that they could sing songs and kind of try to drown out the Black Lives Matter protesters. But as far as the Black Lives Matter protesters, as I said, when they tried to move towards the east side of Dean Street, the police grabbed this young woman. She was, very small. I would say maybe 5 feet tall at most. She did not appear to be any kind of threat to anybody. The police grabbed her, and in one of the pictures I'll try to show, you can see the police are grabbing her, and meanwhile, the Back the Blue supporter is just kind of casually walking by. So
Mr. Evans,
yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. If you're only going to show images, and you feel very comfortable using the share screen functionality, I can allow you to do that. It's just if you're going to share any type of document, then I would need that document because someone might not be able to see it really quickly if you're going to refer to that. Okay?
Let me see if I can show an image then.
Okay.
See if this works here. Let's see. Okay. Does this show up on the screen? I don't know.
It does, and that's also why I caution, that your personal computer is now being displayed in a public meeting, and it will be, visible to the whole world and preserved for eternity. So, that's your choice. But I did send you an email if you wanted to reply with those attachments, and I can share it one at a time. But you shared a screen that's right now showing the directory of the files. And so you need to unshare that and just share the specific file that you've already opened up if you want to do that. And we also saw like some other file flashes across the screen. So that's why I really recommend against that when you shared your screen. So.
Okay. Let's see here. All right. Okay.
And if you can, just use the option that shows only a specific window instead of your entire desktop. Otherwise, again, you're more than welcome to email me, respond to my email and attach the files, and I can share them one at a time as you narrate.
Okay. Let's see if I can find your email. Okay, I see your email. Now I'll try to respond to that. Okay. Let's see here. All right. All right, so if that email comes through, we can try to share some of those images. In any event, my suggestion is what I saw on Dean Street on July 23rd was, in my view, a really excessive use of force against one part of a protest, against one side, if you will, of a public protest, and whereas the other side was allowed to basically have free reign and do pretty much whatever they wanted to do. So a few days later, there was another series actually of public demonstrations on July 25th. There were several earlier in the day at the State House, and then there was a large march that again kind of began at the public safety complex. And I think, again, you just saw an incredible a show of force with police with sticks and full riot armor, really preceding any kind of confrontation. What I saw there that night on July 25th was the police essentially escalating the situation, where they came out in their riot gear with their nightsticks in a very aggressive way, escalating the situation. And then at least, I believe, 3 arrests that happened on Partington Way on the east side of the public safety complex, where the police grabbed people, and then in some of the videos, you could see the police, after they had grabbed people, beating them with the sticks. So that seemed like really an excessive use of force that I don't think was necessary. I think it escalated things and really made things worse. And again, I would contrast it to the march that happened last night, where there was almost no police presence, and the protest went on, and it was a peaceful example of people expressing their First Amendment rights. The other thing I wanted to mention is, my colleague, Attorney Jing Marcos, was actually also legal observing with the National Lawyers Guild on July 23rd and 25th. And then we also invited a friend of ours from Uprise RI as well. And I mentioned this to Jose Batista. I don't know if you all are familiar with Uprise RI. It's an independent news source founded by reporter Steve Alquist. I think it kind of grew out of his reporting of the Burrillville events in 2015, but it covers issues of social justice, human rights, politics, and climate change. And Celine Means, who's here, was a reporter with Uprise RI and captured some of those events on video that happened on July 25th. And we might be able to share those videos with you as well.
Mr. Evans, I do have those images, and I see there's a B, C, and D. So if you'd like to request which order I show them in, I'm happy to.
Let's just try alphabetical order and see what happens.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so this is an image, a photograph from July 23rd, and you can see the Black Lives Matter protesters are on the west side of Dean Street, and it's not a large group. It's maybe 24 or so, and you can see that there's a line of police where they're holding their sticks there. They're all in armor. None of them are wearing face masks. And they're moving aggressively to kind of force the Black Lives Matter protesters on one side of the street. And you can also see they're all facing towards the Black Lives Matter protesters. The Back the Blue demonstrators are essentially in the police parking lot behind these police here. Sean, can we go to the next image?
Sure.
All right, and this is just another image. You can see the Back the Blue demonstrators. They have this image, this American flag with a blue line on it, and they're kind of behind the police. Can we go to the next image? And this is the image I was talking about before. Actually, Jing Marcos, I think, took this photograph, and she may be able to speak more to it. But the young woman was with the Black Lives Matter protesters, and you can see the police are kind of tackling her. And then the fellow in the white t-shirt there was with the Back the Blue protest. He's allowed to just walk wherever he wants, but the police are directing their enforcement against the Black Lives Matter protesters. And to me, this was a very stark contrast and a graphic image. And then behind that young woman there, you can see a whole group of police. They're essentially piling on a young man that was also arrested from the Black Lives Matter protest. All right.
Yeah, this is Jing Marcos. If I may add, at that point, that gentleman with the Back the Blue protest was actually not only he was the same gentleman who was allowed to honk his horn while everyone was speaking, but he was actually also allowed to go behind the counter protesters with Black Lives Matter and just walk freely throughout their group. There didn't seem to be any, real hostility between them, but he was allowed to walk freely through there. The police never stopped him from trying to enter and mingle through that group. Yet as soon as someone tried to cross, notice, in those photos, the police are only facing in one direction.
So in any event, the other thing we wanted to show you were the videos that Celine shot of the arrests on July 25th. And I don't know what the easiest way to do that. Celine's probably more technically adept than I am. She may be able to just share her screen.
Yes, I have the videos ready to be shown. I can screen share directly to them, but clerk, I'm sure that you have some things to say.
If you want to take a shot, you're more than welcome to. Again, my caution is just, we're really just trying to protect you as someone who's presenting information, because you are sharing information from your own machine, and you could inadvertently display personal material belonging to you. So, but if you feel comfortable sharing that, I will open that up so you as a panelist can share. And there might be a special setting that you might have to use so that the participants can actually hear the audio, but maybe we'll get lucky, and if you play it, it will pick up the audio, because Zoom is made to pick up the audio from the microphone, so it can hear you speak, but not necessarily from the computer itself. So we might not be able to hear the audio if there's good audio.
Okay, so were you saying, okay, Ben, which video should I show first? Should I show the car person or the other video? Oh, you're muted.
I think we should do the car first.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Y'all can see that? Okay.
We can.
Okay, I'm sorry that was out of order. Let me open up the other one.
I think that's fine. I know it wasn't the one we were intending to show, but I think it did dramatically show, and they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. That picture shows what I was trying to convey about the very aggressive kind of like use of force by the police, and you could see them you could see those sticks moving up in the air and coming down on people that they had grabbed. So in any event, I think that's an important video to show the way the police were treating demonstrators in Providence on the night of July 25th.
I think I'd like to add here in that, I think one of the things is that it really does show that, that when the police come out there, assuming hostile intent, things get escalate very quickly. I mean, I am a veteran. I served in a combat zone. And one of the things that we went over every time we moved was an escalation of force. And when is it appropriate to show force and show that we are capable of using force? And it wasn't all the time. We were in hostile territory, but that doesn't mean that we were automatically brandishing our weapons every time. So, when they came out, as people were just moving forward, when they already had their nightsticks at the ready, I just, it seems to me that the police here really were not just prepared for an escalation, but actually promoting it by the way that they showed up.
Celine, let's see if we can show that other video. Thank you.
Yep. Here it is. I do want to say, I think this is also a moment where I was pushed by the police.
Free people, fight the power, fight the police. All you fucking minors, you guys are more than welcome to join us. Stop serving your fucking masters. Why are you in riot? I don't see no riot here. Why are you in riot here? I don't see no riot here. Why are you in riot here? I don't see no riot here. Why are you in riot here? I don't see no riot here. Why are you in riot here? I don't see no riot here. Why are you in riot here? I don't see no riot here. Why are you in riot here? I don't see no riot here. Why are you in riot here? I don't see no riot here. Why are you in riot here? I don't see no riot here. Why are you in riot here? I don't see no riot here. Why are you in riot here? I don't see no riot here. Why are you in riot here? We have to stay emotion. We have to keep moving. That's what slowly.
So what you just saw in that video that Celine took was a young man being arrested. He's asking the police, can he move his car? And I can tell you, I was there that night. I was a few feet away. Every time I tried to get a closer look to try to document the arrests that were going on, the police very aggressively, very forcefully pushed me away. They said, you can't come over here. I know that some of the other legal observers there were also pushed away. And you can see that young man is trying to move his car. He's asking the police, can he move his car? And he ends up getting arrested. And I think that's typical of what was happening. And I can also tell you that on the night of July 23rd, as the young woman was being arrested, I was trying to get a better look to see what was going on. And one of the police officers pushed me out of the way, knocked my glasses off, and was screaming in my face, you know, you're next, implying that if I didn't move away, that he was going to arrest me. And you can also see in all of those pictures and all of those videos, the police are not following Center for Disease Control guidelines whatsoever. There are some police that are masked, very few of them, most of them are not. The police officer that screamed in my face on July 23rd was not wearing a mask. These are examples of the ways in which the Providence Police Department is not able to fairly and neutrally regulate these First Amendment activities when the subject of those First Amendment activities is the police themselves. And I don't mean to, I'm sorry I've been talking so much. I don't mean to not let Celine or Jing make some comments as well.
I really don't have any comment, just as a reporter. As a videographer, I am just there to be the person to document. And so
Sorry, we're having trouble hearing you.
I just wanted to say that I don't have a comment in that I can answer any questions, and I can go back to the footage and scrub through. We can pause moments or whatever is needed. But I was just being there as a camera to observe.
Okay, Mr. Evans, is that the end of the presentation?
I think that's all we have for now, yes.
Okay, all right. So what I'll do is I'll open it up to members of the board to ask questions.
Members of the board and or executive director?
And or executive director, yes.
I'll just say something really quickly and then ask a question because my audio went kind of hang wire when it came time to introduce Ben. So first and foremost, thank you for being here. I'll give a little bit of context as to the presentation. We have received a formal complaint regarding the July 23 protest outside the public safety complex. And so some of this material helps us understand a little bit more about what happened that night. And we received a phone call, not necessarily a formal complaint, but a phone call asking about and expressing concerns about what I believe was the second protest on July 25. And so my quick follow-up to Ben is, are you familiar with a particular scene where there was a line of protesters and a police car, like an SUV, blaring the lights and kind of revving at the protesters. Are you familiar with that? Was that July 25? Were you?
And I have footage of that.
Okay, so you were there.
That was on Elmwood Avenue, and I think myself and Celine and Jing were all present there. That was later in the same evening on Elmwood Avenue, I believe.
Can you speak a little bit towards that? Because I'll tell you my thinking. We did receive a phone call about that. I expressed to the person who called that they could, if they were a witness, file a formal complaint. Ultimately, that didn't happen. But since you folks were witnesses, if you could tell us a little bit about your experience in that portion of the protest, if you will.
I have it pulled up if needed.
Yeah, I think maybe Celine could just show the video. That might speak to it.
I will warn everybody, it's very loud. I'm going to turn down the volume, but I don't know like how you guys might hear it and such.
Thank you.
So that was the line of cars coming up, and it is a lot more shaky, but there were some moments of revving. I will quickly come to this point.
I mean, well, this is what they do, though. Both of them, no. Use that energy against them white people that's killing us. Use that same energy. I wish they would do this for the KKK.
So those are the notable incidents of the interactions at Elmwood.
I'll tell you guys why I asked about that. I saw that video or another video from the same night posted on the internet, and there was a question as to whether, I'll just tell you the question that I saw posted on the internet, whether that practice of, driving the car at the people, not necessarily hitting them, obviously, and we can't say that they intended to hit them, but as a clear intimidation tactic, blaring the lights, full sound. I was wondering if in your experience, either with National Lawyers Guild or in covering other protests, whether you can speak to whether that sort of tactic is used, whether it's legal, whether you know of a jurisdiction where it's illegal, just because, again, we have received phone calls expressing concern about that.
Yeah, I would just jump in and say that I was legal observing in Central Falls, Rhode Island, near the Wyatt detention facility a number of months ago, when one of the correctional officers intentionally drove his truck into some protesters who were seated on the sidewalk in as peaceful as you could imagine. There were people affiliated with a group called Never Again Action in Providence, and they were doing a nonviolent civil disobedience protest across the street from the Wyatt detention facility, and that correctional officer drove his truck intentionally into them. This reminded me of that. It was scary because that police car was moving quickly. It didn't seem to have any concern that there were people doing a civil disobedience nonviolent action on Elmwood Avenue there. To me, that was an assault with a dangerous weapon. And did not appear to be in any way justified by what people were doing. That's my view of it. Others might have a different view, but that it was scary the way the police were acting that night.
Sure. Thank you, Ben.
Go ahead, Susan.
Ben, have you had a chance to look at the police department policies around large groups, or how to deal with, a potential, issue, use of force with a large group, and kind of done an analysis as to what happened against actual policy?
No, I haven't done that.
Okay, thanks.
I would actually be curious whether or not these, maybe their standard operating procedures regarding crowd control are available to the public or to people who are interested.
Thank you for that.
I have a quick question, Mr. Chair. Just in regard of the second portion of the video, where there was a lone protester with the sign. I'm sorry if I had difficulty seeing that, but what was that depicting exactly? The concern that the guild has.
Oh, it's not any guilt. That was just of my own vocation. I showed it. They just pushed him forward.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Nothing. I think that's of my own vocation to show.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions? All right, if there are no further questions, I'd like to thank our guests for coming in, presenting with this group today. I think there are some legitimate concerns around policy, and I think as Board Member Dorita pointed out, looking at policy when it comes to crowd control, and we're certainly within our purview to look at that policy as we move forward. So I want to thank you all and appreciate you sharing this information with us.
Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you.
So Sean, if we could have the agenda back up, please. All right, so now we'll move to our next bullet point, which is a discussion relative to the status of PARA's investigation and compensation for investigative personnel. Jose, sorry.
I was just, let me go back 1 second. I was looking at an email that I got there, actually from Sean, and I was a little confused, but I'll clarify that. So we are on to agenda item number 3.
Yes.
All right, so I wanted to give, as you mentioned, Nick, we have begun the process of submitting our investigations to the police department to be investigated. For a long time, we had not submitted them just because we were having difficulty creating a process that was going to be, fulfill our responsibilities under the statute, right? And so through meetings and that's what we finally have submitted at least the first batch of 12 matters that we are that we have voted on to be investigated. There's still some matters that we voted on to be mediated that we have not submitted yet. There have been a couple of concerns with regard to that we are.
We lost you there, Jose. Nope. Can't hear you. Okay. So I think that gesture meant he was going to sign off and sign back on. We're getting used to this in Zoom world.
All right, hello?
Yep, we got you.
All right, I was trying to give some context, but in the light of this sound maybe going in and out, I want to pass the floor to Eugene to please give us an update on how the investigations are going. I was just, what I was saying before, I don't know where I got cut off, was that it's taken us a while to get to a point where we feel like the cases we submit to the police department have a process by which to be investigated, but we finally got to the point where we've submitted 12 cases for investigation. We will be voting on more cases to refer to investigation tonight, but as of this moment, there are 12, and I'd like to give Eugene the space to give us an update as to how that process is going, and then I'll come back and take the part in talking about compensation to that end.
All right, thank you very much. This is really kind of quick and easy. Like Jose had mentioned, there's 12 open cases for investigation. We sent a detailed list to allow for the police to put together information requested. I asked them to first send me reports, any documentation reports or anything that they would have on file, just so I could compare to the investigation notes that I have, and then be able to decide what's the best way to, and what video and other information we would want to look at. So out of that 12, they were able to find 6 actual reports, which I have those in my possession. They had stated that they needed some additional information to receive to look up in their database the other one. So I'm providing them with that list. From the 6 that I was able to review, I sent them a detailed list of additional information, which includes body-worn camera footage with exact dates and times, number of officers on site, and some other reporting type information that should be records based on what their policies are. I got a call last week from Major Perez, who said he would be away until the 25th today and would not be able to start on that request until that date. So at this point, I have not received any of the that second request. And I'm also now working on, I've completed the additional information that should help them locate the other information for the other 6 reports that we need.
Mr. Montero,
So
is
that
there
was the short.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, no, just a question about timeline for the completion of the review of these 6 cases that you've been able to gain access information for.
When I sent the request, that kind of bring down for the actual reports, I will say I got the report, the 6, pretty quickly. Probably within about just over a week, I was able to start reviewing those. That part, I think they're still trying to figure out the details. The hard part right now is that they're having everything go through internal affairs, which the problem with that is that means that if that was me in that position, before I provided any information, I'm going to review it. And that means if they see something that is of concern in that review, it's going to trigger internal investigation. And then that's going to be a whole nother cycle of steps that they're going to put in place, and we won't receive the information. Some process needs to be put in place where we either directly connect with records, because the reports and body cam footage can be accessed in that way through their records department. They just have to figure out and create that process. This current process, it hasn't happened yet, but if there is information out of any of these reports that would spark an internal investigation, I guarantee that's the steps they'll take.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen, any advice for Mr. Montero in the pursuit of finalizing these documents?
I'm not sure what he said is true, because they're going to review it, and if there's anything that they see, if they haven't already received a complaint of what we're looking into, and it triggers another something that they can investigate, they're going to investigate it. And then that's going to put a whole other route involved.
Yes, Susan.
Eugene or Jose, when was the first time, just trying to establish a little timeline here, when was the first time that you sent over a request to the police department asking for any information that we have not yet received?
Jose, do you remember the date that you sent your original information over?
So, and just talking about the complaints we received, not talking about reviewing their internal investigations, which is a lot of what Eugene has done, but the complaints that we received, we sent over the batch of 12, if I'm not mistaken, July 30, like one of the last days of July.
Okay, I thought we had sent over some a while ago when we first determined, like, investigate, one of our 3 options.
No, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations with them, but in terms of actually sending them a complaint or a description of a complaint, that has not happened until about 3 weeks ago, or 3.5 weeks ago, almost a month.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
the initial request, I'm sorry, the initial request was sent on or around 8/11.
So
Excuse me, guys, if I can interrupt
Go
for a
ahead.
second, should this be in an executive session? This conversation? No?
but it's just,
Oh,
we're talking procedural. I mean,
Yeah, there's no,
Okay,
I think we're okay.
okay.
no individual information being given.
Right.
If you want me to jump in, this isn't exactly like on point with like what your executive session is advertised as, because that, that's to talk about specific cases. And because you're not talking about specific cases or names or anything like that, I think it's fine for you to keep talking about it in open session.
Thank you.
Okay. One more question then. So what was the date, the first complaint that we received, we decided to investigate?
Oh,
You know?
so I'm sorry. Now that you say it that way, Susan, I think I understand a little bit better. So literally the first 1, 2, or 3 complaints we received
Right.
were April 2019. And what we did was, because we didn't have, an investigator, we had even less process than we do now. And so what I did for the first or second complaint was I wrote a cover letter to the chief, the commissioner, copying internal affairs, informing them that we had a complaint and doing what I do, which is to describe what happened, on Elmwood Avenue at this time, we received a complaint. We're not going to give you the names of the folks because that's confidential, but this is enough information for you to find the reports and everything else. After the first 2, we ran into this problem with what Eugene is alluding to, in that internal affairs has to look at it, and there's a lot of ifs, maybes, ors, and so there just wasn't that streamlined communication in terms of giving us what we needed. So that's when we stopped sending the letters and kind of focused on trying to create the process, which has taken us until now. So thank you for bringing up that question. That was so long ago, I kind of even.
Well, that's kind of exactly what I'm trying to get at, is that we weren't sitting on all of these until just, a few weeks ago, that we did start the process way back in April 2019 by asking for information and then hit a roadblock. Correct?
Right.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay, I'm sorry, Eugene, did you have more that you wanted to add?
No, that's it. Like I said, like the biggest concern that I have is, as I stated, I even on the review of some of the reports that I did receive, I can tell you they sent those most of that information over with confidence that it may not have too damaging of information. There are a couple still. I'm really interested in looking at the body cam footage. There's one case in particular that I concerned that if they do review it, that's going to go to internal affairs when they review it, based on the information that I have so far.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but even if any review by the police does create an environment where they end up doing an internal investigation of their own, do we not have the authority to do a parallel investigation?
In my understanding, the answer is yes, but I can tell you they're going to, it is possible they're gonna go back to the same conversation that we've been having.
I get that, but I mean, I think that at this point, this kind of tennis match of what we feel versus what's actually in the ordinance or statute
Yeah.
is where we need to be going. I mean, if it says that that's where what we can do, if we do have the authority to execute on a parallel investigation, whether they want to do one because of their internal investigation or not, if we deem it necessary to do our own investigation, I think that that's something that we should be doing. I don't know if other members of the board agree with that or not, but that's my stance on it.
I agree with that, Machiste. We have the power to go parallel. They can't, and I had mentioned I talked to some of y'all and try to figure this out, but they can't impede our investigation if we have the authority to go parallel. They can't withhold evidence for us not to perform a parallel investigation. And that's why we have to also, with the potential statute being rewritten, come up with different policies or protocols or procedures to allow this to happen, because it shouldn't be, based on the statute and the spirit of the statute.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, and I appreciate both comments, because with that same thought process, I still requested the information, because it should not stop us from moving forward. When we do, we should be prepared to do what we have to get the information needed.
Can I take a second and pivot to the compensation part? Or does anybody else have a question?
If there are no further questions, we can move to that portion.
On the one hand, I did not include mediation on the agenda.
Lost your audio again, Jose. Yep. This is where we need some elevator music. Eugene, so while we wait, just wanted to ask again if you had kind of a sense of an estimated timeline in which we could have some final conclusion to these 6 complaints that we've received materials for.
It's hard to give an actual estimate, because I don't know how long they're going to take to provide the body cam footage. So once I have the body cam footage in my possession, honestly, I should be able to get through pretty quick. One particular case is going to be a little bit more in depth, so that might take a little longer. But it's hard not knowing how long it takes to get the material to give a real estimate of time.
So the practice has been, and Mr. Cohen, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if there's no ongoing investigation, then the videos should be easily released. But if there's an investigation that's already happening in which the videos are part of evidence, then it becomes a more complicated matter in retrieving that video. Is that correct?
Well, the issue is, even if there's no current investigation, they're going to review all information before they pass it on to us, based on the process in which they would like to put in place and having this go through internal affairs. The best way for this to happen is there needs to be some connection, however that works internally, directly to records. All body cam footage and reports can be accessed there, and that eliminates that possibility.
Okay, thank you.
So I'll say 2 things, and I really don't know what's happening with my audio. It seems like whenever I start speaking, it just kind of goes hangwire. One, obviously I am in communication with the City Council office about trying to amend the para agenda. I think there's appetite for some changes we're recommending, and there's not so much for others. but this one seems to make sense, right? The department should be simply handing over the materials that we need to investigate these things. So that is something, that is an effort that's taking place right now. I wanted to just say two things quickly. In all reality, mediation should be included in this bullet item. The reason why it's not, we've run into some extra difficulties with mediation because the mediation is, and I'm not saying is what I think, it's just what I've experienced. A mediation is going to require a police officer to make a statement, right? A mediation is in many ways a conversation between, or not necessarily between the parties, but through the mediator, trying to get to the issue of what happened and trying to get to a point where it won't happen again. And we've been met with even more resistance, as much resistance as you all are hearing about with regard to investigations. We're being met with even more resistance for mediations because the understanding is that police officers either pretty much will not participate in a mediation, which puts us in a position of why go down that process if we know that that's the case. I suspect that may change. That's, certainly the same way with investigations. At one point, we were told explicitly there will be no parallel investigations. The conversation that's taking place now is different. And so just to speak to the mediation component, and we should be addressing it here, but that's why we've kind of lagged behind with mediations. The latter point I wanted to get to in this bullet is about compensation. Obviously, Eugene is not a full-time employee. Perhaps if we get to the budget for the next fiscal year, we can have a conversation about posting the position to turn it into full-time, because the workload for Eugene has increased tenfold between everything that's happened this summer and now that we're actually beginning the investigations. I wanted to inform the board, or better stated, remind the board of what we did in the last fiscal year in terms of thinking about compensation for this position while we wait to turn it into a full-time one. Right now, we're in the July 1 to June 30 fiscal year, 2020 to 2021, but we're still using the same budget, if you will, as last year, just because the new one hasn't been appointed yet. And so outside of the salary line item and all the benefits and everything else, the main line item we had that could pay for something like consultants or independent contractors is our miscellaneous line item, which we have $75,000 allocated to. What we did last fiscal year was we asked, in order to pay anybody more than $5,000, you need to ask the Board of Contract and Supply for permission. And basically the way that it worked was that we had to write a formal letter to the Board of Contract and Supply that basically says, listen, we are a relatively new board. We're still figuring out our expenses and how to set things up. Can you allow us to allocate more money of our own money, right? Allow us to spend our own money in this way. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we allocated $25,000 each to mediation and investigation. My point being that obviously we're in a situation that's not ideal without knowing what the new budget's going to be. But since we're in this position, whether it be, I don't think we put an agenda item to actually take a vote on this now, but thinking about this moving forward, maybe we might want to make the same request to the Board of Contract and Supply, whether it be allocating $25,000 or $30,000 towards investigation and a similar component to mediation, while we kind of figure out how, when we're going to be able to transition these positions into full-time positions. Does that make sense? I'm getting a lot of blank stares.
Thank you. Any questions for Jose?
Okay.
I was going to say, I think that maybe we should start getting our ducks in a row to put these jobs up, post these jobs up, so that we can move past this place where we're playing a game where we have to pay someone a consultancy fee or a part-time fee. And that way the jobs are posted. We vet the people that we're going to possibly hire. We go through all the motions that we have to go through, and we get our full-time staff so we can keep doing the work that we're doing. Because if we have someone working in a consultancy role right now, and then we get somebody else who ends up being hired as the full-time person, we're going to be changing horses in the middle of a race, and that can be detrimental to any investigations that are ongoing.
So I'll start to put a job description together, at least for the investigator position and maybe the mediator one as well. Because I know we had talked about some other positions, maybe an assistant or an executive assistant, because that was actually in the original budget as well. So I am happy to work on that. Anybody else?
All right, thank you, Jose. Very good. Sean, may we have the agenda up again, please? Okay, next bullet point, discussion relative to the city council president hosting a citywide dialogue on civil rights. Jose, did you want to talk about that as well?
Absolutely. So I've given the board some highlights as to this. Basically, again, I've been in contact with the city council office quite a bit this summer. There's been a lot of questions about what's going on, what can we do, how can we improve the situation. One of those projects is amending the para statute, the para ordinance, to better reflect the needs that we have that we addressed in this meeting. And the other project that I'm working on with them is, at the invitation of the city council president, hosting was going to be a citywide virtual multi-part dialogue in hopes of getting, not just having what we would call a know your rights conversation, but getting into the specifics, a dialogue about power, if you will, right? So far, and I want to give you folks a little bit of an outline of what we're being planned, and hopes that you guys can either give feedback, or if you have different ideas, absolutely include them. But at the moment, we have at least 3 of the sessions planned. We're thinking about 90-minute windows. One of the sessions will be about the Fourth Amendment, specifically what does it mean from a legal context when we say a police officer stops somebody, right? It's not just what we think it means. It says, hey, you stop. They have to have a legal standard to do that, and talk about when, where, and how. And what you'll see is a lot of times when you hear it from the civilian perspective as a person being stopped, and you hear it from the legal perspective, of law enforcement perspective, you're going to have some different perspectives, which is what leads to sometimes confusion or some of the incidents that we see on the street that have to do with resisting arrest and that sort. So what is a stop? What is a search? When can the police do it? And the idea is that we'll have a couple of panelists, whether they be attorneys or otherwise. And the idea is not to have the panelists dominate the conversation. They're going to introduce themselves, maybe talk a little bit about their experience, and really invite the public, right? It's supposed to be a dialogue for the public to talk about their experience and ask questions of the panelists. And the hope from this being that from this conversation, we can either identify what are problem areas, right? Misunderstandings, whether it is that the police are interpreting the law in a way that's excessive or vice versa, and either use that to amend the laws in the city or educate the public, or educate the police department, but basically improve the situation. Because as we've seen in some of the presentations made tonight and conversations we've had previously, a lot of these problems that we're seeing, whether it be in national news or here in Providence, really stem from these interactions that go awry. And so my thinking, and it seems like the city council office is thinking as well, if we can have an opportunity to bring these parties together, again, people from different perspectives, especially to talk about the legality of these things, I think it'll go a long way to a better understanding. So one is on the Fourth Amendment, right? Stops and searches and seizures. The second conversation is about Miranda rights. A lot of folks, we watch movies and we see how people are read. If you are arrested, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can be used against you, right? We know what Miranda rights are, but there are specifics, again, legally, about when they're supposed to be read and what can happen if they're not read, and what's the remedy, right? Can the evidence be used against you, vice versa? And so that's another big topic that civilians often have questions on and they don't understand. And so just giving them the opportunity to have that conversation. And the third is about immigration. A big question that's arisen recently is, what is the role of local police when it comes to immigration? I know the PCPRA, the Providence Community Police Relations Act, says that Providence police cannot collaborate with other law enforcement agencies, whether it be ICE or the feds in some other way. And so we know that that's the expectation of Providence. but what is it that they are supposed to be asking? Can they ask you for your papers, if you will, right? So what's that dynamic between local police forces, which are not immigration officials, and civilians, right? So those are the three topics for now. I think, certainly open to expanding that. We're certainly thinking about folks to invite as panelists, and we're hoping to really promote this and have a good turnout. Again, it's an opportunity for the community to engage and have a conversation, learn more about this, and in hopes of reducing some of the confusion and animosity that creates from these situations, right? I mean, we saw it in some of the videos, right? When can a police officer push somebody, right? It's not just some unlimited thing that can happen whenever. Granted, there's policies and laws, but those can also change and be updated. So that's a little bit about that. I think we're planning to start, at least if everything continues, we're planning to begin this series at the end of September. We're trying to work around, obviously, all the other meetings that the city's hosting. And it seems like they're going to be on Wednesday nights in 90-minute sections. And the other thing we're thinking about is also doing a parallel section in Spanish, right? So we might do one of the dialogues on one night and then do it another night in Spanish, just because there's such a significant population in Providence of folks who speak Spanish and not English. Mr. Vice Chair.
I guess Ms. Ray is having an issue with her audio. She wanted to know who else is going to be involved with this group, this panel discussion group.
So far, us, Para, is working with the City Council office to sponsor it, if you will. I know it's both of our organizations. But in terms of speakers, I've been reaching out to folks in a variety of communities, right? The Attorney General's office, if there's prosecutors available, the Public Defender's office, if there's folks who are willing to participate. Also the private bar, right? We do, again, it's a community thing. We don't want the panelists to, it's not about them, but to the extent that we can have people who do this for a living, who can speak about cases that they've had, or, actual laws that they interact with, right? What it's supposed to be, how it sometimes escalates. Like, we want to bring folks who have relevant experience who can speak to that. And so there's not any other particular group organization that's associated with it besides Para and the City Council office. Is just individuals who are willing to participate. And obviously the dialogues will be advertised and open to the public the same way that these meetings are.
I can reach out to someone I know. That's something, I believe it or not, I used to do with an individual who was chair of the I forgot the program, but he was the National Black Police Officers Association. But I can get with you about that offline. We used to have a whole thing, what do you do when you're stopped by the police? And it was a primer on different things to do, consider, things you can do to help protect yourself, so on and so forth. So
I think you're referring to Charles Wilson.
Yes, Charles. How is he, if you've seen him? I haven't talked to him in a while, but yeah, very good guy. And it was pretty informative situation, program.
Mr. I, you had your hand up.
It's pronounced D, actually. But yes, so I just wanted to make sure that I understand where you're coming from when you say that you want to provide a dialogue for the community, for the folks who, they interact with these laws and these policies on a day-to-day basis, and they have the most experience with it. But I also want you to keep in mind to also think about including the folks who are on the ground, who were the reason that this was implemented. I would encourage you to reach out to the local organizers and the local community members to see if they're also willing to sit on this panel that you're talking about, because they know that language also like the back of their hand. They are the ones who created that language and sat down at the table to come up with it. So it would be in our best interest trying to create a space for the community to bring the community to the table, and not just these people who have fancy degrees.
That's a great point. I appreciate that. And I think you're absolutely right. And if I can be a pest, if you have any specific people or specific groups in mind, I'd love to follow up with you, maybe with an email. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Just one quick question or a follow-up to that. If we're going to start doing this kind of thing, then are we moving from being a independent review organization to a direct activist organization? Are we becoming an activist organization? That's the question that I have.
I can give you my 2 cents. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I just said that's kind of a good point there, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'll give you my 2 cents, and if there's anything we can do to shift away from anything that looks like an activist organization, that's fine. Obviously, I don't think we are an activist organization. I don't think we're trying to become one. Obviously, you want to be mindful of that, so that, because it's one thing of what you intend, but it's another thing what it looks like. I get that. No, but there's, what we're trying to promote is understanding, right? We're not necessarily saying one thing over the other. I think it's healthy for people to understand. I would say right now it's pretty clear that there's a gap between what the law is and how it is enforced. And I think that's been true for a long time. And so whatever we can do to promote, community outreach, which is something that's in the statute, in a way that's productive and encourages dialogue, I think is a good thing. But if there are ways we can kind of safeguard ourselves so that we don't appear to be an activist organization, I think that it would be smart to do that too.
Well, that's the thing, because as you just stated, we're part of the ordinance is that we're supposed to be doing outreach. Now, what is that supposed to entail? Are we supposed to be educating people on their rights? Are we supposed to be educating people about PARA and PARA's existence? Are we supposed to be educating people on the authority that PARA has? What is the mandate in regards to that outreach? And how is that supposed to be put into the framework of PARA?
Susan?
I received an email today. I don't know if you know about this, Jose, but the Providence Human Relations Commission and the African American Advisory Group, Police Advisory Subgroup, is doing several presentations around, budget and use of force and and Leobor. I just don't want us to duplicate anything. Have they reached out to you at all about what they're doing?
Yeah, I haven't seen the email that you're talking about right now. I don't think I received it, but I am aware of that collaboration. I know that they were planning on doing something like that. I share your concern. I don't think we should be duplicating what they're doing. And so it's interesting, if they're talking about the subjects you just talked about, use of force and the budget, I think those things are different from what we're talking about, at least so far as the topics that I highlighted.
There's a few topics like SROs and different things like that. So just don't want to do the same things.
That's fair.
All right, thank you. If there are no further comments or questions, Sean, I'd like to ask if there are any folks in the audience that would have their hands up for a comment. I know it's not part of the agenda, but if there are folks there, I'm hoping that we can offer a motion to amend the agenda to allow for a few minutes of public comment.
I'm not able to identify.
I'm sorry. What was that, Sean?
I'm not able to identify. It doesn't appear that there is anyone that is an attendee that is interested in speaking at this time.
Okay. All right. With that, we can start the process to move into executive session. Sean, if you could put the agenda back up again, please. All right, so we're now headed into executive session where we'll discuss and vote regarding any formal complaints received by PARA. We head into executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-4 and Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A4 with respect to investigative proceedings regarding allegations of misconduct, either civil or criminal. So with that, we'll go into a roll call.
If you have a motion from someone to go
Oh.
into executive session.
Sorry, getting ahead of myself. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
I move that the body goes into executive session.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye?
So let's, now I'll do the roll call. Actually, that was a second by Mr. Fontaine, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we go right into roll.
Chair Figueroa,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rankin,
Yes.
Ms. Civilay is absent. Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Dorita,
Yes.
Ms. D,
Yes.
Mr. Fontaine,
Yes.
Ms. Swearingen is absent. Ms. Ray. Do we have audio back from Ms. Ray? Ms. Ray, are you able to unmute yourself? I see that your mute button is on. If you're able to.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. You have 7 yeses, 2 absent. The motion passes, and I will see you all on the other side in executive session, and we'll join you back here later.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Ms. Ray, are you able to leave this, because I don't want, if you're on this session, if you stay on this session, then people will be able to hear what's happening in the executive session. So you need to leave.
Can you hear me? I'm trying to do that now.
Okay, but you'll need to leave the meeting that you have the video for right now. Can you do that?
Yeah, hold on. Let me do that now.
You are in the meeting now. There are 4 participants
Wait a minute.
in the meeting.
Jack, let me out of here. Sorry, hold on. Let me
problem.
go here. All right, I'm leaving.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Not quite. There we go. Goodness. Give me one moment. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, do we have everyone back that we're looking for? Let me see. We can, I guess we're waiting for the chair.
Oh, great. We just had a little drive-by shooting right near my house.
Okay,
Okay, looks like we're just, I'm not sure how many people we're waiting on, but I guess I assume we are definitely waiting on Mr. Batista.
yeah, we can
And
give that.
Mrs. Ray.
Okay,
And I have Ms. Ray here.
okay, good. So Jose can jump in when he logs on. Is there a motion to end executive session? If you could speak up, I'm back on my phone and I can't see everybody at the same time.
I motion that we leave executive session and return to
Sec-
open session.
Seconded.
Okay, roll call.
Chairman Figueroa,
Yes.
Vice Chair Rankin,
Yes.
Ms. Civillet is absent. Mr. Cohen,
Yes.
Ms. Dorita,
Yes.
Ms. D,
Yes.
Mr. Fontaine,
Yes.
Ms. Swearingen is absent. Ms. Ray. Hold on, let me make sure that I have Ms. Ray unmuted. Ms. Ray, can you unmute yourself?
And the answer is yes.
Thank you.
Ooh.
There we go.
All right, I'll just mute Ms. Ray temporarily. Okay, you have 7 yeses and 2 absent, so the roll call vote passes to leave executive session.
Okay, thank you. We're now out of executive session. Is there a motion to seal the minutes?
Motion to seal the minutes.
Second.
Second. Is this a roll call too as well, Sean? Or
No, you can
Okay.
do a voice vote.
okay. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Minutes are sealed. We'll now do a review of our complaint actions. All of these complaints start with 2020-2020 dash. We'll start with 05 and we'll end with 019 or 019. So 05, the vote was to table. 06, the vote was to table. 07 was to table. 08 was to dismiss. 09 was to dismiss. 011 was to table. 012 was to dismiss. I'm stuck here. Let's see. 012, I'm sorry. 012 was to table. 011 was to dismiss. 013 was to move to investigation or to investigate. 014 was to dismiss. 015 was to dismiss. 016 was to move to investigation. 017 was to move to investigation. 018 was to move to investigation. And 019 was dismissed. Now we have one final matter before we wrap up. There is a report that our investigator, Mr. Montero, has put together. And what I'd like to do is entertain a motion to release that report pending legal review.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. Discussion? All in favor?
I'm sorry, before you
okay.
take that vote, can you just are you able, I don't want to encourage you to disclose anything you don't want to disclose, but you're just having a motion to release a report that Investigator Montero has produced.
Yes.
Can you give just a snippet of the topic of the report so that it can be distinguished from any other report?
Sure. The report will cover the current ongoing legal matter from a sergeant at the Providence Police Department.
Okay. Can you ask that someone make a motion to amend the motion to include that language as stated?
I make a motion to amend the motion to include the language as just stated.
I make a motion to say that 3 times fast.
You got no shot at that.
There we go.
And that was originally moved by Dorita and
Vice Chair.
And Vice Chair, right? Okay, right. Thanks.
Okay, is there a discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, and that. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
So yeah, that was approved to the amendment was approved, and now could you please take another vote to approve as amended the original motion?
Okay. So we have to. So what you're saying is we just voted on the
amendment.
The friendly amendment.
And now you just say all in favor for the motion as amended by Ms. Dorita?
All in favor for the amendment noted by Ms. Dorita?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you. All right. Appreciate everybody putting in the extra time here. As you know, these are some very serious matters, and it's it's good that this committee takes its responsibility seriously and follows due diligence. Certainly we have a lot more work to do, particularly with the cases that we voted on for tonight, the complaints, and also those that are ongoing as well. Just for the public, know that we're here working diligently to find a conclusion or a resolution to your complaint, and we will not deviate from that. So with that said, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, folks.
Good night.
Good night.
Aye.